Good morning. Well, as you can see, we're sort of just picking little bits and pieces out of the Acts of the Apostles at the moment, trying to show you different themes that are going on. And one of the things which happened in Corinth. The Jews in Corinth become very angry with what Paul is doing and the way he's speaking. And he was there for over a year in Corinth. And they decide to start a sort of riot and to make all protests. And eventually they bring Paul before a man called Gallio, who was the Pro-Consul in that area at that time. And they say to Gallio, we must stop this man from speaking as he is speaking and doing what he's doing, because he is disturbing people by his actions, and he's causing confusion in people's minds. But before they can go any further, Gallio stops them. And he says, no, this is not a civil matter, he says. This has nothing to do with the Roman state. This is something which is part of your religion and something you must work out for yourselves. And he refuses to have anything to do with it. Now, why is this important? Well, Gallio was a patriarch. In other words, he's one of the aristocratic families of Rome. And when he makes this decision, what he is saying quite simply is, this is not a civil matter. It should not come before Roman courts. This is something which must be decided outside of the legal system. I'm sure that Luke records this so that when the case finally came up before the Roman magistrates in Rome, after Paul had been arrested, and he was in Rome for a couple of years before his case was heard, when Luke was writing down these accounts, the magistrates looking at it would have seen this account from Gallio. And he, being part of this patriarchal family, they would have known him, and they would have known the judgment that he made. And if he had said, this is not a civil matter, this is a matter for your own religion to be worked out, then the magistrates in Rome would have said, well, we have to agree with this. You see, law very works on precedents. It works the same in our own country. If a judge makes a decision, it's laid down. A future court case dealing with a similar subject may be brought before another judge, and the barrister standing up will say, my lord will remember, because pointing out to him the case that he's referring to, that in such and such a case, the decision made by the judge on that occasion was this and this and this. So my client should be released. So in the same way, now Luke records this decision by Gallio in Corinth. And he says, Gallio, when he was faced with the same problem, says this is not a matter for the Roman courts. This is a matter for people discussing religious things which are outside of our domain. So that's just one small point which I want to point out to you. And you'll see it in the story about Paul visiting Corinth. So Paul goes on with his journeys. But finally he feels drawn to travel back towards Jerusalem. He's warned. He's warned that what is coming is going to be bad for him, but he still feels drawn to go back towards Jerusalem. In fact, he gathers the Ephesian elders together as a group. And he says to them, I'm going back to Jerusalem. I don't know whether I'll ever see you again, because I don't know what's going to happen to me there. But I've been told by different prophets that when I get there, there's going to be trouble lying ahead of me. And he starts to travel back towards Jerusalem. Why? Because he feels God's pull on his life to take him back there. And sure enough, when he gets back to Jerusalem and starts to speak, people again recognize him and they know where he's come from. They make up a lie, first of all, and say that he's bringing Gentiles into the temple. But as they start to riot, the Roman centurion in charge of that city comes down and separates him off and says, what's all this about? Stop this rioting. And they bring all these cases against him. And Paul, standing up in their midst, says, I want to make my defense before you. And they become quiet as they hear him speaking in their own language, in Aramaic. And as he speaks to them, he says, I am a Pharisee. I've been trained as a Pharisee, and I believe in the resurrection of the dead. Now, immediately he says this, you find there's a clash again in Judaism, a clash between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, for the Pharisees always believed in the resurrection of the dead. The Pharisees always believed in the existence of angels. The Sadducees, who ran the temple and were the high priest family and the other priestly families, they didn't believe any of this. They said, no, we just live our lives because that's what God asks of us. We do not believe there's anything beyond this life. You see, there's Pharisees and Sadducees in the church of the present day, I'm sure. But we have to be careful when we deal with these people, because we have to see them to be converted and to come to know the truth about life and death. But Paul in Jerusalem is now arrested by the Roman authorities and kept safe from the attack which is going to come against him. Amen.